The security scanner shrieked. Every cadet in the registration line froze as crimson light bathed the entrance hall of the Galactic Military Academy. Lieutenant Karvesh's four eyes widened as he stared at his terminal, his chitinous fingers trembling over the display. "Impossible," he whispered in Universal Standard. "This has to be a malfunction." The girl at the scanner didn't flinch. She stood there in her worn civilian clothes, a canvas bag slung over one shoulder, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her name was Claire Martinez, and she'd just traveled 6 months through the void to reach Zentara Prime. "Is there a problem?" Claire asked, her voice calm. Behind her, a Valkyrian cadet with silver skin sneered. "Of course there's a problem. Humans don't belong here. This academy is for real warriors, not primitives from backwater worlds." His companions laughed. The Draxon twins clicked their mandibles in amusement. A tall Serenian female flicked her tail dismissively. "The scanner must be broken," another cadet said. "Probably never encountered something so low on the evolutionary scale before." Karvesh hit the emergency comm. "Security Chief Dromak to Registration Hall 1? Immediate." Within seconds, a massive Kronar appeared, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles. He'd served in the Frontier Wars, the Hive conflicts, and the Void Breach crisis. Behind him came 2 armed guards, their weapons drawn. The hall went silent. Dromak approached the terminal, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he read the display. His expression shifted from confusion to something Claire couldn't quite identify. Fear? Respect? "Clear the hall," Dromak said quietly. "Sir," Karvesh stammered. "I said, clear the hall, now." The Valkyrian cadet stepped forward. "We have a right to register. We've been waiting for hours. Just because some human triggered a faulty scanner doesn't mean we should..." Dromak's head snapped toward him with predatory speed. "You have no idea what you're looking at, whelp." "This scanner has never malfunctioned in 40 cycles. It has processed 10,000 species from across 8 galaxies. And in all that time, it has only displayed that warning 3 times. He paused, his voice dropping to a growl. All 3 were Earthborn. The color drained from the Valkyrian's face. Claire remained still, though her heart hammered in her chest. She'd expected prejudice. Earth was barely 100 years into galactic society. Humans were considered primitive, aggressive, unstable. Most Academy recruiters wouldn't even visit human colonies. But Commander Harrison had promised her a spot if she could make the journey on her own. She'd worked 4 jobs, saved every credit, and hitched rides on cargo haulers to get here. She wasn't leaving now. The first Earthborn who triggered this warning was Captain Rachel Morgan. Dromak continued, his eyes fixed on Claire. She held the line at Proxima Station against a hive swarm of 20,000. Alone. For 6 hours. The second was Sergeant Daniel Cross. He boarded a Kronar dreadnought single-handedly during the siege of Talos and fought his way to the bridge. The third was Private Amy Foster. She walked into a Draxon war camp, challenged their warlord to single combat, and won. The hall was dead silent now. Dromak approached Claire, studying her with those ancient scarred eyes. The scanner doesn't detect weapons or contraband. It analyzes psychological profiles, neural patterns, combat instinct, survival drive, and threat assessment potential. That red warning means one thing: extreme danger, unpredictable, irrational courage, refusal to accept defeat even when extinction is certain. He leaned closer. It means you're the kind of being who will charge into hell itself if it means accomplishing the mission or protecting your unit. Claire met his gaze steadily. Is that a problem, sir? A low rumble emerged from Dromak's throat. Laughter. For your enemies? Yes. For this academy? He stepped back and saluted her. Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy, Cadet Martinez. Try not to terrify your instructors too badly. The scanner's red light continued to pulse as Claire walked through. Behind her, the other cadets pressed themselves against the walls, giving her a wide berth. The mockery had vanished from their faces, replaced by something else entirely. By nightfall, every cadet in the academy would know her name. Not because she was human, but because she was Earthborn. And that changed everything. Claire's assigned quarters were in the North Tower, a towering structure that housed 500 cadets from 40 different species. The room was small but functional, with a sleeping platform, a study terminal, and a locker for personal effects. She'd barely finished unpacking when her door chimed. A Metherian female stood in the corridor, her crystalline form refracting the hallway lights into rainbow patterns. I'm Kira. I'm in the room next to yours. Just wanted to introduce myself before orientation tomorrow. Claire Martinez? She extended her hand, then remembered that Matharians didn't have traditional limbs. Sorry, I'm still learning the customs. Kira's form rippled with what might have been amusement. Don't worry about it. Most species here are equally confused. I've seen 3 diplomatic incidents just in the dining hall today. Her tone grew more serious. I also wanted to say that what happened at registration was impressive. Most first-year cadets would have crumbled under that kind of scrutiny. I didn't do anything special. I just stood there. You didn't defend yourself, didn't show fear, didn't try to prove anything. You just accepted it. Kira's form pulsed thoughtfully. There's a rumor spreading through the dormitories. They're saying you're one of the Earthborn warnings, that you're dangerous. Claire sighed. I'm not dangerous. I'm just a girl from Denver who wants to serve in the Galactic Fleet. Maybe, but you should know that the other cadets are already making bets on how long you'll last in combat training. The Valkyrians are saying you'll break within a week. The Draxons are giving you 2 weeks at most. And what do you think? Kira's form brightened. I think they're underestimating you. Humans have a reputation in the outer colonies, the species that went from chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in less than a century, the ones who colonized 40 systems before most civilizations even accepted their existence. The beings who volunteered for suicide missions during the Hive Wars when every other species was calculating acceptable losses. And she paused. I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Before Claire could respond, an announcement echoed through the dormitory corridors. All first-year cadets report to the Central Arena in 15 minutes for orientation. Attendance is mandatory. The Central Arena was massive, a circular chamber that could hold 10,000 beings. Claire found herself standing among hundreds of cadets, all wearing the gray uniforms of first years. The diversity was staggering. Towering Kronar warriors, sleek Valkyrian nobles, insectoid Draxons, gaseous Netheri contained in pressure suits, and dozens of species she couldn't even name. At the center of the arena stood a single figure. General Thane, a Serenian with silver fur and mechanical augmentations covering half his body. He lost an arm, a leg, and 3 organs in the Battle of Karnak Rift, but he'd refused to retire. Instead, he'd become the Academy's commandant, responsible for training every officer in the Galactic Fleet. You are the weakest generation I have ever seen, Thane began, his amplified voice filling the arena. You come from wealthy families, privileged worlds, comfortable lives. You think military service is an adventure, a way to earn glory and honor for your bloodlines. You are wrong. He began pacing, his mechanical leg clicking against the floor. In 3 days, you will begin combat training. Half of you will fail within the first month. Another quarter will fail before the year ends. Of the 100 standing here today, perhaps 50 will graduate, perhaps fewer. His gaze swept across the cadets. The Galactic Fleet doesn't need soldiers who follow orders blindly. We need warriors who can think, adapt, and survive when everything goes wrong. Because in space, everything always goes wrong. A holographic display materialized above the arena, showing footage from various battles, ships exploding, soldiers fighting in alien environments, desperate last stands on distant worlds. This is what awaits you. Not glory, not honor. Just survival. And the mission. Always the mission. Thane stopped pacing and turned to face them directly. Some of you are already preparing excuses for why you'll fail. You're too small, too weak, too inexperienced. Your species isn't naturally aggressive. Your homeworld is peaceful. You've never faced real danger. His voice hardened. I don't care. The enemy won't care. When the hive comes screaming out of the void, when pirates board your ship, when your commanding officer is dead and your systems are failing, no one will care about your excuses. They'll only care whether you completed the mission. Claire felt the weight of every eye in the arena. She knew what they were thinking. The human. The Earthborn warning, the primitive from the backwater world. Tomorrow morning, you will report to your assigned training groups, Thane continued. You will be pushed beyond your limits. You will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. And when you think you cannot continue, when every instinct tells you to quit, you will discover what you're truly made of.
He paused, letting the words sink in. Dismissed.
The cadets began filing out, their conversations a mixture of anxiety and bravado. Claire walked alone, lost in thought, until a voice called out behind her. Martinez. She turned to find a human male approaching. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped black hair and a scar running along his jawline. He wore the red insignia of a third-year cadet. I'm Jake Patterson, third year specializing in tactical operations. He studied her with sharp blue eyes. I heard about the scanner incident. Figured I should introduce myself. There aren't many humans at the academy. How many? 12, including you. Most are in specialized programs, medical or engineering. Only 3 of us are in combat training. He lowered his voice. Listen, I need to give you some advice. The other species here, they don't understand humans. They think we're reckless, unstable, too aggressive. They're not entirely wrong. I'm not reckless. Maybe not. But you're going to face challenges that other cadets won't. The instructors will push you harder because they want to see if the reputation is deserved. The other cadets will test you because they're afraid of what you might be capable of. And Command will watch you closely because Earth is still considered a probationary member of the Galactic Federation. Claire crossed her arms. So what do you suggest? Jake smiled grimly. Survive the first month. That's all. Don't try to prove anything. Don't let them bait you into mistakes. Just do the work, follow orders, and show them that humans belong here. He turned to leave, then paused. That red warning on the scanner? It's not a curse. It's a promise. When things get bad, and they will get bad, that's when you'll understand what it means to be Earthborn. That night, Claire lay on her sleeping platform, staring at the ceiling. Through her window, she could see Zentaur Prime's twin moons and the distant stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. The planet that had produced 3 individuals so dangerous that a security scanner had to warn the entire academy about their presence. She didn't feel dangerous. She felt terrified, overwhelmed, completely out of her depth. But she'd made a promise to herself, to her family, to Commander Harrison, who'd given her this chance. She would not fail. Her terminal chimed softly. A message from Kira. Good luck tomorrow. You're gonna need it. Claire smiled and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be the real test. Tomorrow, she'd discover whether the scanner had been right about her. Whether she truly carried that spark of irrational courage, that refusal to accept defeat, that made humans so feared and respected across the galaxy. Tomorrow, the cadets who had mocked her would learn what Earthborn really meant. The training ground sprawled across 20 square kilometers of carefully engineered terrain. Desert, jungle, Arctic tundra, volcanic plains. Every environment a soldier might encounter, compressed into a single brutal testing ground. Claire stood with 40 other first-year cadets in what they called the assembly field, a barren stretch of red dirt beneath Zentaur Prime's harsh morning sun. Their instructor was a Kronar named Sergeant Vortak. He stood 3 meters tall, his scaled hide bearing the white scars of plasma burns and blade wounds. His voice when he spoke sounded like grinding metal. Combat training begins with survival, Vortak announced. You cannot fight if you cannot survive. You cannot lead if you cannot adapt. Today you will learn this lesson. He gestured toward the terrain behind him. Each team will be dropped into a different environment with minimal supplies. Your objective is to reach the extraction point within 48 hours. Secondary objective. All team members must arrive alive. Claire was assigned to Team 7, along with 11 other cadets. The Valkyrian from registration, whose name was apparently Kelvin, sneered when he saw her. The Draxon twins, Zex and Vex, clicked their mandibles in disapproval. But there were others, too. A quiet Serenian named Lysa, a massive Kronar youth called Borek, a Nethari, and a pressure suit designated Node. 4, 7, and 5 others from species Claire was still learning to identify. Your team leader will be decided through combat, Vortak continued. Step forward if you believe you're worthy to command. Kelvin stepped forward immediately. So did Borak and one of the Draxon twins. Claire hesitated for only a moment before joining them. The Valkyrian laughed. The human thinks she can lead? This should be entertaining. Vortak's eyes narrowed. The challenge is simple. Last one standing leads the team. Begin. Borak charged first, his enormous fist swinging toward Kelvin with devastating force. The Valkyrian was faster, ducking beneath the blow and striking at the Kronar's exposed side. But Kronar hide was thick, and the punch barely registered. Zex moved with insectoid speed, his bladed arms slashing toward Claire. She didn't try to block. Instead, she dropped low, letting the blade whistle past her head and swept Zex's legs out from under him. The Draxon hit the ground hard, momentarily stunned. Claire rolled aside as Borak's massive foot slammed down where she'd been standing. The fight was chaos. Borak's raw strength against Kelvin's speed against Zex's blades. Claire stayed on the periphery, watching, learning. She'd grown up in Denver's underground fighting rings, where survival meant understanding your opponent's weaknesses before engaging. Borak was powerful but slow. Kelvin was fast but arrogant. Zex relied too much on his natural weapons. Kelvin managed to strike a nerve cluster in Borak's neck, dropping the giant Kronar to his knees. Then he turned toward Claire, his silver face twisted in contempt. "Your turn, primitive." He came at her fast, throwing a combination of strikes meant to overwhelm and intimidate. Claire blocked the first two, absorbed the third, and then did something that made every cadet watching gasp. She stepped into his attack, closing the distance until they were nearly chest to chest, and drove her knee into his solar plexus with controlled precision. Valkyrians had a nerve cluster there, a biological weakness they rarely exposed because their fighting style relied on maintaining distance. Kelvin's eyes went wide. He collapsed, gasping for air. Zex struggled to rise, but Claire was already moving. She caught his bladed arm, twisted it at an angle that forced him off balance, and applied pressure to a joint she'd noticed when he fell. The Draxan yielded immediately. Silence fell over the training ground. "Team 7, Vortak announced. "Your leader is Cadet Martinez. The transport dropped them in the volcanic plains, a hellish landscape of black rock, sulfur vents, and rivers of molten lava. The temperature was 50 degrees Celsius in the shade, and there was no shade. Each cadet received a survival pack containing water purification tablets, basic medical supplies, and a combat knife. No communication devices, no weapons. No easy paths to extraction." Claire gathered her team around a natural rock formation that provided minimal shelter from the heat. "First priority is water. Second is shelter. Third is navigation. We have 48 hours to cover approximately 60 kilometers through hostile terrain. That's doable if we work together and don't waste energy on conflicts." Kelvin, still recovering from their fight, glared at her but said nothing. Borak nodded slowly, his massive frame already adapted to the heat thanks to his Kronar physiology. The others waited for her to continue. "Lysa, your species has enhanced vision in low light. I want you on point during any dark or enclosed passages. Borak, you're our heavy lifter and our tank if we encounter hostile wildlife. Node 47, your pressure suit has environmental sensors. Monitor for dangerous gas concentrations or temperature spikes. Zex Vex, your natural armor makes you resistant to heat. You two will scout ahead when the terrain gets difficult." She continued assigning roles, using each cadet's natural abilities to strengthen the team. It was basic tactical thinking, the kind taught in any military manual, but to these cadets, most of whom came from cultures that valued individual glory over collective success, it was almost revolutionary. They moved out at a steady pace, conserving energy. Claire took point, using the sun's position and the distant mountains as navigation markers. The volcanic plains were treacherous, with hidden crevasses and unstable rock formations. Twice they had to detour around lava flows. Once they nearly lost a team member when a sulfur vent exploded unexpectedly. 6 hours in, they encountered their first real problem. A pack of xanthary predators, reptilian creatures the size of wolves with crystalline teeth that could shear through metal, 12 of them blocking the path ahead. "We should fight through," Kelvin said immediately. "We can take them." "We'll lose people," Claire countered, "and we need everyone to reach extraction." "Then what do you suggest, human? Ask them nicely to move?" Claire studied the predators, noting their behavior. They were territorial, not hunting. They'd claimed this particular stretch of cooler ground and weren't going to give it up easily. But they also weren't attacking, which meant they saw the team as a potential threat rather than prey. "We make ourselves not worth the effort," Claire decided. She pulled a heat flare from her pack and ignited it, creating a bright, scorching light. The xanthari hissed and backed away. Fire. Most predators across the galaxy have learned to associate fire with danger. Borak, Zex, Vex grab flares and form a perimeter. Everyone else, we move through slowly. No sudden movements. Show strength but not aggression. It worked. The xanthari watched them pass, growling but not attacking. Once they were clear, Kelvin approached Claire, his expression unreadable. "That was clever," he admitted grudgingly. "I would have fought them, probably would have won, but we'd have casualties." He paused. "I'm beginning to understand why the scanner marked you as dangerous. You don't fight like a warrior. You fight like someone who's already calculated every possible outcome and chosen the path of maximum efficiency." "I fight like someone who wants everyone to go home alive," Claire corrected. They traveled through the night, using the cooler temperatures to cover more ground. Lysa's enhanced vision proved invaluable, helping them navigate around hazards invisible in the darkness. By dawn, they'd covered 40 kilometers, well ahead of schedule. But the final stretch was the most dangerous. The terrain shifted from volcanic plains to a narrow canyon system carved by ancient lava flows. The walls rose 100 meters on either side, creating a natural choke point. Claire could see why the instructors had chosen this route. It forced teams to either take the risk or waste precious time finding another way. "It's a trap, Node," 4-7 observed, his mechanical voice echoing through his pressure suit. "The canyon is too perfect, too convenient."
"Agreed," Claire said.
"But we don't have time to go around. We push through, but we do it smart. Zex, Vex, scout ahead but stay within visual range. Everyone else, weapons ready. If something happens, we defend, we don't chase. Understood?" They entered the canyon in formation, with Claire in the center where she could direct the team in any direction. The walls seemed to close in as they progressed, the sunlight above reduced to a narrow strip. It was cooler here, almost pleasant after the volcanic heat, but Claire's instincts screamed danger. The attack came from above. Not Xanthari this time, but something worse. Void bats, creatures that hunted in the asteroid fields but occasionally adapted to planetary environments. 30 of them, each the size of a human torso with wings like razors and sonar that could disorient prey. They dove as a coordinated swarm, their screeching calls designed to confuse and panic. 3 cadets went down immediately, hands clutched over their ears, unable to function. The rest tried to fight back, but the bats were too fast, too agile in the confined space. Claire felt the sonic attack like needles in her brain, but she'd trained for this. Sensory overload, information warfare. She forced herself to focus, to push through the pain. Tight formation, backs together, cover the fallen. Borak roared and swung his massive arms, catching 2 bats and slamming them against the canyon wall. Kelvin's speed proved useful now, his strikes precise enough to clip wings and send bats spiraling out of control. But it wasn't enough. They were being overwhelmed. Claire made a decision that would later be analyzed in Academy tactical courses for its sheer audacity. She grabbed a flare, lit it, and threw it directly at the largest concentration of bats. The creatures shrieked and scattered, their echolocation disrupted by the sudden heat and light. Then she did something even more unexpected. She started climbing. The canyon walls were rough, with plenty of handholds. Claire scaled 15 meters in seconds, positioning herself above the swarm. The bats, focused on the ground targets, didn't notice until she dropped into their midst, using her weight and momentum to crash through their formation. She hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact, but the effect was immediate. The swarm's coordination shattered. "Now," she shouted. "Drive them toward the exit." The team surged forward, using light, noise, and coordinated strikes to push the disoriented bats back. Within minutes, the swarm retreated, leaving behind 3 dead bats and a team of exhausted but alive cadets. Kelvin stared at Claire with something approaching respect. "You're insane. That drop could have killed you." "Could have," Claire agreed, checking on the 3 cadets who'd been incapacitated. They were recovering, their species' resilience kicking in. But it didn't, and everyone's still alive. That's what matters. They reached the extraction point with 6 hours to spare. Team 7 was the first to arrive, and the only team with all members intact. As they collapsed in exhausted relief, waiting for the transport, Claire noticed Sergeant Vortak observing them from a distance. He didn't approach, didn't offer congratulations. He simply nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement that carried more weight than any words. That evening, back at the academy, Claire found her room had been vandalized. Someone had spray-painted a message across her wall, "Earthborn freak. Go home." She stared at it for a long moment, then pulled out cleaning supplies and got to work. By the time Kira arrived to check on her, the wall was spotless. "You should report this," Kira said, her crystalline form pulsing with anger. "This is unacceptable. Reporting it won't change how they see me," Claire replied calmly, but succeeding well. "Let them waste energy on hate. I'll spend mine becoming the best soldier I can be." The news of Team 7's perfect extraction spread quickly through the academy. Other teams had lost members to injuries, failed to reach the extraction point, or arrived well past the deadline. The instructors began studying Claire's leadership style, analyzing her decisions. The other cadets, who had mocked her just days before, now watched her with wary respect, but Claire knew this was only the beginning. The real tests were still ahead. Advanced combat training, ship operations, zero-gravity warfare, strategic planning. Each phase designed to break cadets and forge the survivors into officers capable of leading the galactic fleet. And somewhere in the instructors' offices, in files marked with security clearances, a red warning pulsed next to her name. Earthborn. Do not engage. a designation that meant she was both valuable and dangerous, a weapon that could save thousands or cost everything if mishandled. Claire Martinez didn't sleep well that night, not because of fear or doubt, but because she could feel something awakening inside her, that spark the scanner had detected, that refusal to accept defeat, that irrational courage that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. She was beginning to understand what it meant to be marked by red light, and the galaxy was beginning to understand what it meant to challenge someone who carried that mark. The weeks that followed transformed Claire from an unknown quantity into a legend in the making. Combat training intensified, with scenarios designed to test not just physical ability but psychological resilience. The instructors threw impossible situations at the cadets, rescue missions with insufficient time, defensive positions with inadequate supplies, ethical dilemmas with no right answers. Claire approached each challenge the same way she'd handled the canyon: analyze, adapt, survive. She didn't always succeed, and her failures were spectacular. During a zero-gravity boarding exercise, she miscalculated a trajectory and slammed into a bulkhead hard enough to crack 2 ribs. In a hostage negotiation simulation, she chose to prioritize civilian lives over tactical advantage and lost half her team. Each failure was documented, analyzed, and added to her permanent record. But her successes were equally notable. She led a team through a 12-hour siege scenario that 90% of previous classes had failed. She solved a ship systems puzzle that had stumped cadets for 3 generations by thinking laterally about power distribution. She scored perfect marks on weapons proficiency despite having the least experience with galactic standard firearms. The other human cadets began seeking her out. Jake Patterson invited her to tactical study groups. A second year named Lisa Grant asked for advice on dealing with species prejudice. Even the non-human cadets started approaching her, not just from Team 7 but from other units. The Draxon twins, Zex and Vex, became her unlikely training partners. Node 4-7 spent hours discussing strategy with her, fascinated by human tactical thinking. Kelvin remained hostile but increasingly isolated. His pride wouldn't allow him to acknowledge Claire's abilities, but his actions spoke differently. He began mimicking her tactical choices, incorporating her team-focused approach into his own leadership style. When confronted about it, he simply snarled and walked away. 3 months into training, the Academy announced the Crucible, a month-long exercise that would test everything the cadets had learned. Teams would be assigned to starships and sent on mock missions throughout the Zentara system. Communication would be limited, support would be minimal. Failure would mean repeating the entire first year. Claire was assigned to the destroyer Vanguard, along with 30 other cadets and a skeleton crew of instructors playing the roles of experienced officers. Jake Patterson was there as the senior cadet, effectively the ship's second-in-command. Team 7 formed the core tactical unit, with other cadets filling support roles. Their mission briefing was delivered by General Thane himself. You will investigate disturbances in the outer asteroid belt. Intelligence suggests pirate activity, possibly connected to the Free Sector Alliance. Your objective is to gather evidence, neutralize threats, and protect civilian shipping lanes. He paused, his mechanical eye whirring as it focused on each cadet. This is not a simulation. The pirates are real. The danger is real. The weapons are set to training mode, but accidents happen. People have died during the Crucible. Some years, teams don't come back at all. The Vanguard launched at 060 hours the next day. Claire stood on the bridge as Zentaur Prime fell away behind them, replaced by the vast emptiness of space. She'd never been on a military vessel before, never felt the thrumming power of fusion drives or the subtle vibration of weapon systems on standby. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. Jake approached her as they transitioned to faster-than-light travel. You nervous? Terrified, Claire admitted. I've trained for this, but training isn't the same as reality. No, it's not, but you've got something most of these cadets don't. He gestured around the bridge at the others, all focused on their duties, all trying to prove themselves. You understand that the mission isn't about glory. It's about getting everyone home. That's rare. Is that why the scanner marked me? Jake smiled. The scanner marked you because you're the kind of person who will do whatever it takes to accomplish both, the mission and the people, even when those objectives conflict. That's what makes Earthborn dangerous. We don't accept that some sacrifices are necessary. We find another way. Their first contact with pirates came 6 days into the mission, a distress signal from a civilian freighter, under attack by 3 raider ships. Standard pirate tactics: disable the engines, board, steal the cargo, leave no witnesses. The Vanguard's captain, an instructor named Commander Reith, turned to Jake. Assessment, Cadet Patterson? We're outgunned 3-1. The raiders have superior maneuverability and weapons systems. Standard doctrine would be to call for reinforcements and shadow until support arrives. He paused. But the freighter will be destroyed within 20 minutes. They don't have time for reinforcements, so what do we do? Jake looked at Claire. So did Commander Reith. The entire bridge waited for her response. Claire studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The Vanguard was a destroyer, built for escort duty and patrol operations. Fast, but not heavily armed. The pirate ships were older military vessels, probably stolen or purchased on the black market. They had firepower, but poor maintenance would make them slower, less coordinated. We make them think we're more dangerous than we are, Claire said finally. We broadcast on all channels that we're a Federation task force conducting anti-piracy operations. We light up our weapon systems to maximum intensity, making our sensor profile appear larger. And we come in fast and aggressive, like we're confident we can take all three. That's a bluff, Kelvin objected from the weapons station. If they call it we're dead, they won't call it. Pirates aren't soldiers. They're opportunists. They calculate risk versus reward. Right now, the reward is a single freighter's cargo. But if they think they're facing a task force, if they believe they might lose their ships, they'll run. The cargo isn't worth their lives. Commander Reith considered this for a long moment. Then she smiled. Execute the plan. But if this goes wrong, Cadet Martinez, you'll be scrubbing plasma conduits for the rest of the year. The Vanguard accelerated toward the attack, broadcasting false credentials and painting all three pirate vessels with targeting solutions. Claire stood at the tactical station, her hands moving across the controls with practiced precision. She'd never actually fired ship weapons before, but the principles were the same as ground-based systems. Point, lock, pray you don't have to shoot. The pirates hesitated. Claire could see it in their formation, the way they shifted from aggressive pursuit to defensive positioning. They were analyzing the Vanguard, trying to determine if the destroyer was really alone or if it was the vanguard of a larger force. Maintain aggressive posture, Claire ordered. Don't give them time to think. Two of the pirate ships broke off, their engines flaring as they accelerated away from the engagement zone. The third hesitated a moment longer, then followed. Within minutes, they disappeared into the asteroid belt, abandoning their prey. The bridge erupted in cheers. Commander Reith nodded approvingly. Well done, Cadet Martinez. That was textbook deception warfare. You just saved civilian lives without firing a shot. But Jake was frowning at his sensor display. Something's wrong. The pirates broke off too easily. They should have at least probed our defenses before running. Claire felt it too, that prickling sensation at the back of her neck that meant danger. It was a test. They wanted to see how we respond. Which means they're watching us, Commander Reith said grimly. And they're planning something. The freighter crew was grateful but shaken. The Vanguard docked and provided medical assistance and supplies. Claire spoke with the freighter captain, a weathered Serenian who'd been running cargo for 40 years. This is the third attack this month, he told her. Used to be the shipping lanes were safe. Now we travel in convoys and pray we don't get separated. The Federation patrols can't be everywhere at once, and the pirates know it. Have you noticed any patterns? Claire asked. Times, locations, types of cargo they target? All different. Sometimes they hit supply runs heading to the colonies. Sometimes they attack empty ships returning for new cargo. No pattern, no predictability. It's like they're not after profit, they're just creating chaos. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She reviewed sensor logs, tactical reports, and intelligence briefings. Something about the pirate attacks didn't make sense. If they were just criminals seeking profit, they'd focus on high-value targets and avoid unnecessary risk. But these attacks were different. Random. Almost like they were probing Federation defenses, testing response times and capabilities. She found Jake on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. You feel it too? He said without turning around. Something's wrong. This isn't just piracy. It's reconnaissance. Someone's gathering intelligence on our patrol patterns, our response protocols, our weaknesses. But who? The Free Sector Alliance doesn't have the resources for this kind of operation. The hive is contained in the outer reaches. The Kronar are allies. Claire's blood ran cold as a possibility occurred to her. What if it's not an external threat? What if someone inside the Federation is working with the pirates? Jake turned to face her, his expression serious. That's a dangerous accusation to make without evidence. I know, but think about it. The pirates always seem to know where our patrols are weakest. They strike right after ships rotate out of sectors. They avoid areas with heavy military presence. That's not luck. That's intelligence. If you're right, and I'm not saying you are, but if you're right, we can't trust anyone. Not the instructors, not command, not our fellow cadets. Claire nodded slowly. We need to find proof. Hard evidence that can't be dismissed or covered up. And we need to do it before someone realizes we're investigating. The next 2 weeks were tense.
Claire and Jake worked quietly, analyzing data, looking for patterns. They enlisted Node
4-7, whose analytical processing capabilities were far beyond human or organic limits. Together, they built a picture of systematic compromise, of someone inside the Federation feeding information to the pirates. Then came the ambush. The Vanguard was investigating another distress signal, this one from a colony supply depot. As they entered the depot's orbit, 6 pirate ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel around them. Not raiders this time. Full military cruisers, armed with live weapons, not training systems. Battle stations Commander Reith ordered, but her voice carried an edge of fear. This is not a simulation. I repeat, this is not a simulation. All hands to battle stations. The Vanguard was fast, but not fast enough to outrun 6 cruisers.
And their weapons, designed for training exercises, were no match for military-grade systems. They were trapped, outgunned, and about to die.
Claire's mind raced through options.
There were no good choices, no clever tactics that would save them. They needed a miracle.
Or they needed someone willing to do the impossible. The scanner's red warning flashed through her mind. Earthborn, do not engage. Extreme danger. Irrational courage. Refusal to accept defeat even when extinction is certain. She looked around the bridge at the cadets who trained with her, fought alongside her, trusted her leadership. At Jake, who'd been the first to treat her like she belonged. At Commander Reith, who'd given her a chance to prove herself. At Team 7, who'd become more than just teammates. They were depending on her to find a way out. And Claire Martinez, the girl from Denver who'd been marked by red light, made a decision that would define her career and change the course of the war that was coming. Commander, she said calmly, I have a plan, but you're not going to like it. At this point, cadet, I'll take anything. Claire pulled up the Vanguard's system schematic. The training weapons are locked to non-lethal settings. But the ship's fusion drive isn't. If we vent plasma from the drive system through the forward weapons ports, we can create something approximating a directed energy weapon. It won't be precise, it won't be pretty, but it'll be hot enough to damage their shields. That could destabilize the entire drive system, the engineering officer objected. We could lose propulsion, life support, everything. We're dead anyway if we don't try, Claire shot back. At least this gives us a chance. Commander Reith looked at her for a long moment. Do it. But if we survive this, you're writing the after-action report explaining how a first-year cadet talked me into jury-rigging a fusion weapon on a ship full of other cadets. The Vanguard's crew worked frantically to implement Claire's plan. It took 8 minutes. 8 minutes during which the pirate cruisers moved into optimal firing positions, during which every second felt like an eternity. Claire stood at tactical, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Plasma weapon ready, the engineering officer reported. But we only get one shot. After that, the drive will need to be shut down for emergency repairs. One shot is all we need, Claire said. Target the lead cruiser. Maximum discharge. Fire on my mark. The pirates opened communication channels. Federation vessel, power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resist and you will be destroyed. Claire waited for them to move closer, to become complacent, to believe the Vanguard was helpless. Waited until the lead cruiser was close enough that even an improvised weapon couldn't miss. Mark. The Vanguard's forward section erupted in a plume of superheated plasma, a stream of fusion fire that crossed the distance between ships in microseconds. It hit the pirate cruiser's shields at point-blank range and burned through them like paper. The ship's hull melted, its systems overloaded, and it began tumbling out of control. All power to engines, Commander Reith ordered. Get us out of here, now! The Vanguard lurched forward, accelerating past the damaged cruiser, racing for the edge of the gravity well where they could jump to faster than light travel. The other 5 pirate ships gave chase, their weapons hammering at the destroyer's shields. Alarms screamed as systems failed, as hull plating vaporized, as the ship shook with each impact. They weren't going to make it. Claire could see the numbers, the cold mathematics of pursuit. The pirates would catch them before they reached the jump point. They needed more time, just 60 seconds, but they didn't have it. Transfer all shield power to aft sections, Claire ordered. Everything. Leave the forward shields at minimum. That's insane, Kelvin protested. If we hit debris, we're dead. If the pirates catch us, we're dead anyway. At least this way we might survive long enough to jump. The shields shifted, concentrating every bit of defensive power against the pursuing cruisers. It worked, but barely. The Vanguard's hull groaned under the stress, components failing, systems going offline, but they were still moving, still fighting for every meter of space between them and destruction. 30 seconds to jump point? A direct hit knocked out the starboard engine. The Vanguard spun, wildly off course, and Claire felt her stomach lurch as artificial gravity failed. She grabbed her console to stay anchored. Compensating, the helm officer gasped, fighting to regain control. Come on, baby, hold together. 15 seconds. Another hit, this one destroying their communication array. They were blind now, unable to call for help, unable to coordinate with other Federation forces. Just a damaged destroyer running for its life through an asteroid field with 5 warships in pursuit. 5 seconds. The Vanguard crossed the jump threshold, and reality twisted. Faster-than-light travel wasn't instantaneous, wasn't comfortable, but it was salvation. The pirate ships fell away, unable to follow without risking collision with the asteroids. They'd escaped. The bridge was silent except for the sound of damaged systems and labored breathing. Claire released her grip on the console and looked around at the other cadets. They were alive, battered, terrified, but alive. Commander Reith broke the silence. Damage report. The responses came in a litany of failures and emergencies. Hull breaches in 3 sections. Both engines compromised, weapon systems destroyed, life support at 60% capacity. Communications offline. They were barely functional, limping through space on momentum and prayers. We need to reach a Federation base for repairs, Jake said. Closest one is Outpost Gamma, 2 days away at our current speed. 2 days, Commander Reith repeated, with pirates potentially tracking us and no way to call for backup. She turned to Claire. Your improvised plasma weapon saved our lives, Cadet. But it also probably announced our position to every hostile in the sector. They know we're damaged, vulnerable. If they come after us again, we won't survive. Claire nodded. Then we don't give them the chance. We go dark. Minimal power, minimal emissions. We drift like debris until we can make repairs. Once systems are back online, we make a run for Outpost Gamma. And if they find us while we're drifting, then we pray that Earthborn reputation is more than just legend. The next 48 hours were the longest of Claire's life. The crew worked in shifts, repairing critical systems while maintaining absolute silence. No active sensors, no communications, no unnecessary power usage. They drifted through space like a ghost ship, hoping the pirates would search elsewhere, hoping their luck would hold just a little longer. Claire spent the time reviewing everything they'd learned. The coordinated ambush, the live weapons, the fact that the pirates had known exactly where the Vanguard would be. This wasn't random piracy anymore. This was war, and someone inside the Federation was helping the enemy. On the second day, sensors detected 6 ships approaching their position, the same pirate cruisers that had ambushed them. They were conducting a search pattern, methodical and thorough. Claire watched from the darkened bridge as the cruisers swept through the area, their active sensors washing over the Vanguard's hull like searchlights. The crew held their breath. The slightest power spike, the smallest heat signature would give them away. They were dead in the water, completely defenseless. If the pirates found them, it was over. The cruisers passed within 10 kilometers. Claire could see them on passive sensors, massive and deadly. She imagined the crews inside, scanning for their prey, eager to finish what they'd started. One of the ships slowed, its sensors lingering on their position. Then it moved on. The entire pirate fleet continued their search pattern, passing the Vanguard without detection. 30 minutes later, they jumped away, leaving the area clear. They're gone, Jake whispered, as if speaking too loud might bring them back. For now, Claire agreed. But they'll be back. We need to get to Outpost Gamma before they realize we're still here. The Vanguard limped into Outpost Gamma 3 days later, barely functional but intact. As they docked, Claire saw the welcoming party waiting for them. Admiral Korath, the sector commander, along with a full security detail and several officers she didn't recognize. Disembarked first, saluting sharply. Sir, I need to report a serious incident. My ship was ambushed by hostile forces using military-grade weapons and coordinated tactics. I believe there's been a significant intelligence breach. Admiral Korath's expression was grim. We know, Commander. 3 other training vessels were also attacked during the Crucible. Only yours survived. He turned his attention to the cadets filing off the ship. I'm told we have a first-year cadet to thank for that. Cadet Martinez stepped forward. Claire moved through the crowd, acutely aware of every eye on her. She stood before the Admiral and saluted. "Tell me what happened out there," Korath ordered. Claire recounted the entire mission: the freighter rescue, the ambush, the improvised plasma weapon, the escape. She didn't embellish, didn't try to make herself sound heroic, just the facts delivered clearly and concisely. When she finished, Korath nodded slowly. "You showed initiative, creativity, and most importantly, you got your people home. Those are the qualities we need in our officers." He paused. "I'm also told you've been conducting an unauthorized investigation into pirate activities." Claire's heart sank. Someone had reported them. "Sir, I can explain." "You don't need to. Your investigation uncovered evidence of insider collaboration that our own intelligence division missed. Evidence we're now using to root out traitors in our ranks." He smiled slightly. "Though next time, please inform your commanding officer before you start playing detective. It would save everyone a lot of stress." Jake stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, we weren't sure who to trust. The intelligence breach could have been anyone." "I understand. And your caution probably saved lives. But the war that's coming will require trust between officers, between units, between species. We can't fight if we're looking over our shoulders at each other." "War, sir?" Claire asked. "The pirate attacks were a probing action. We've since confirmed that the Free Sector Alliance is preparing a major offensive against Federation space. They've been recruiting pirates, mercenaries, and disaffected military units for months. This was their way of testing our defenses, identifying our weak points." Admiral Korath's expression hardened. "The Federation Council will formally declare war within the week. And when they do, every officer in the fleet will be needed, including cadets who've proven they can handle impossible situations." Claire felt the weight of those words. War. Real war, not training exercises or simulations. People would die. Worlds might fall, and she would be expected to lead, to make decisions that could save her damn entire crews. "The crucible is over," Korath announced to all the cadets. "For most of you, it will be your final grade for the year. But for Team 7 and the crew of the Vanguard, you've already passed a much harder test. You've faced real combat and survived. You've demonstrated the qualities we need in wartime officers." He turned specifically to Claire. "Cadet Martinez, effective immediately, you're promoted to junior officer rank and assigned to special tactical training. Your team will be the first human-led unit in the Galactic Fleet's combat operations." The other cadets murmured in shock. Promoting first years was unheard of, especially to positions of command. But Claire saw the logic in it. Humanity was still new to the galactic community, still trying to prove their worth. Having a human officer lead a successful combat unit would send a powerful message both to allies and enemies. "Sir," Claire said carefully, "I'm honored. But I'm still learning. There are far more experienced officers who should lead this unit." "Perhaps. But experience isn't everything. You have something equally valuable. You understand that the mission and the people aren't separate objectives. You'll fight like hell to accomplish both, and you'll find ways to do the impossible when necessary." Admiral Korath smiled. "That's the Earthborn difference. That's what makes humans dangerous, and that's exactly what the Federation needs right now." As the cadets were dismissed, Claire found herself surrounded by Team 7. They'd been through hell together, had trusted her with their lives, and had come out the other side stronger for it. "So," Kelvin said, his voice lacking its usual hostility, "I guess this means you're in charge permanently now." Zex and Vex clicked their mandibles in what might have been approval. Borak clapped her on the shoulder hard enough to nearly knock her over. Node 47's pressure suit hummed thoughtfully. Lysa simply smiled, her Serenian features warm with genuine affection. "We're with you," Jake said quietly. "Whatever comes next, whatever this war brings, you've got a crew that will follow you anywhere." Claire looked at each of them. These beings from different worlds, different species, different cultures, all united by the trials they'd endured together. She thought about the scanner's red warning, about what it meant to be marked as dangerous, as someone who refused to accept defeat even when faced with impossible odds. She'd come to the Galactic Military Academy as an unknown, a human from a backwater world, someone to be mocked and dismissed. But she was leaving as something different, a leader, an officer. Someone who'd proven that humanity belonged among the stars, fighting alongside species that had been exploring the galaxy for millennia. The war was coming. And Claire Martinez, the Earthborn cadet who'd been marked with red light, would be ready. The declaration of war came exactly as Admiral Korath predicted. The Free Sector Alliance, a coalition of breakaway colonies and opportunistic warlords, launched simultaneous attacks across 15 Federation sectors.
They'd been planning this for years, carefully positioning forces, recruiting allies, and undermining Federation authority wherever possible. The pirate raids had been just the beginning, a way to gauge response times and identify vulnerabilities. The Galactic Military Academy transformed overnight. Advanced courses were accelerated, graduation requirements were modified to prioritize combat readiness over academic achievement. Cadets, who would normally spend 4 years in training, were being commissioned as junior officers after 2. The Federation needed bodies, needed leaders, needed every capable being they could field. Claire's special tactical training consisted of 16-hour days studying fleet coordination, ground assault tactics, zero-gravity combat, and xenopsychology. Understanding how different species thought, how they approached warfare, how they responded under stress. It was overwhelming, drinking from a fire hose of information while knowing that lives would depend on her ability to process and apply it all. Her unit, officially designated Tactical Response Team Alpha, but unofficially known as the Earthborn Squad, consisted of Team 7 plus 6 additional members selected for their complementary skills, 3 humans including herself and Jake, plus 9 beings from 7 different species. It was the most diverse unit in the Academy, and also the most scrutinized. "They're watching us," Jake observed during a training break. "Every instructor, every officer, every cadet. They want to see if humans can really lead multi-species units in combat. Then we give them something worth watching," Claire replied. Their first combat deployment came 3 months after the Crucible. The FSA had seized Kepler Station, a strategic waypoint that controlled access to 6 colony systems. Federation Command ordered a counterattack, a combined operation involving 3 battle groups and 12,000 personnel. Tactical Response Team Alpha would be inserted ahead of the main assault to disable the station's defensive systems. The briefing was conducted by General Thane himself, his mechanical eye gleaming in the dim light of the tactical center. "This will not be a training exercise. You will face real enemies with real weapons who really want to kill you. The station's defenders number approximately 200 FSA troops plus automated defense systems. Your insertion point is here." He highlighted a section of the station's hull. "You'll have 30 minutes to reach the main control center and shut down shields and weapons. If you fail, the battle groups will face heavy casualties during their assault." It was a massive structure, built from an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a military installation. Multiple levels, redundant systems, designed to withstand siege conditions. Attacking it head-on would be brutal and costly. "What's the expected casualty rate for our team?" she asked. Thane's expression didn't change. 70%? Possibly higher. "This is a suicide mission, Cadet Martinez. You're being sent because someone has to go, and your team has the best chance of succeeding. I won't order you to do this. I'm asking for volunteers. Anyone who refuses will not be punished or judged, but if you accept, you'll be saving thousands of lives." Claire looked at her team. They'd trained together, bled together, formed bonds stronger than any she'd known before. She wouldn't blame them if they refused. 70% casualties meant most of them would die. That wasn't bravery. That was mathematics. Kelvin spoke first. "I'm in. If we're dying, might as well make it count." The others agreed, one by one. Not because they wanted to die, but because they understood what was at stake, because they trusted each other. Because they'd been marked, trained, and prepared for exactly this kind of impossible situation. "Then get your gear," Thane ordered. "You launch in 6 hours." The assault shuttle dropped them in hard vacuum 5 kilometers from Kepler Station. They wore combat armor, bulky suits that protected against environmental hazards and small arms fire while maintaining mobility. Claire led them through the debris field surrounding the station using wrecked ships and orbital garbage as cover against sensors. They reached the hull without detection and began the breach. Borak placed shaped charges against a maintenance access port while the rest of the team provided security. The explosion was silent in vacuum. A flash of light followed by a gaping hole in the station's armor. Inside, gravity and atmosphere returned. The team moved through darkened corridors, guided by thermal imaging and station schematics. They'd studied this layout for weeks, memorized every turn, every maintenance shaft, every potential ambush point, but theory and practice were different things. The first contact came at Junction 17. FSA troops in light armor, positioned behind barricades with clear firing lanes. Claire's team was exposed, caught in the open with no cover. A standard firefight would be catastrophic. She made a decision in microseconds. Jagged, flashbangs, and smoke, rush 'em. Grenades arced through the air, detonating in bursts of light and chemical fog. The team charged forward using speed and aggression to overwhelm the defenders before they could recover. It was brutal, messy, terrifying. Claire fired her weapon at shapes in the smoke, trusting her training and instinct. Bodies fell, screams echoed, then silence. Clear, Zex reported, his bladed arms dripping with dark fluid. They'd lost Node 4-7. A lucky shot had breached his pressure suit, killing him instantly. The team moved on, no time to mourn, no time to process. The mission clock was ticking. They fought their way through 3 more encounters, each bloodier than the last. Vex took a round to the chest that cracked her carapace but didn't penetrate. Lysa's left arm was burned by plasma fire. Jake caught shrapnel that embedded in his thigh armor. But they kept moving, kept fighting, driven by determination and the knowledge that thousands depended on them. The control center was defended by FSA elite troops, veterans who'd been fighting the Federation for years. They'd fortified the position, set up overlapping fields of fire, and prepared for exactly this kind of assault. Claire's team was down to 11 members, exhausted and wounded. The defenders numbered at least 30. "This is it," Claire said over the team channel. "Everything we've trained for, everyone we've lost. It ends here." "How do we play this?" Jake asked. Claire looked at the tactical display, searching for any advantage, any edge they could exploit. The control center was a hardened bunker with one entrance. Assaulting it directly would be suicide. But there was another way, something she'd noticed in the schematics and dismissed as too risky. The control center's power comes from the main reactor through conduits that run beneath the floor. If we can access the maintenance level below and plant charges on those conduits, we can knock out their power and life support. They'll have to evacuate or die. "That's brilliant," Kelvin said. "Also insane. The maintenance level is exposed to vacuum and filled with automated defense drones. I know. That's why I'm going alone. The rest of you will provide a distraction, make them think we're preparing for a frontal assault. I'll slip away, plant the charges, and be back before they realize what's happening." "That's a suicide mission within a suicide mission," Jake protested. "It's the only way. And we're running out of time." Claire checked her chronometer. 12 minutes until the battle groups began their assault. "Trust me." She left before anyone could argue further, making her way through the access shafts to the maintenance level. The cold hit her immediately, vacuum stealing heat through her armor. The HUD displayed warnings about limited oxygen and extreme temperature. She had maybe 10 minutes before her suit's systems failed. The maintenance level was a nightmare of exposed conduits, malfunctioning equipment, and patrolling drones. Claire moved carefully, using magnetic boots to walk across surfaces that defied conventional gravity. The drones passed within meters, their sensors sweeping for intruders, but her armor's stealth coating kept her invisible. She reached the power conduits and began placing charges. Precision was critical. Too much explosive and she'd breach the station whole. Too little and the conduits would remain functional. She worked with frozen fingers, fighting against armor that grew sluggish in the cold, against oxygen levels that made her lightheaded. The first charge was set, then the second. The third. She had 30 seconds of air left when she placed the final charge and triggered the countdown. 60 seconds to get back to her team before the entire maintenance level became a kill zone. She ran, abandoning stealth for speed. The drones detected her immediately, their weapons tracking her movement. Rounds sparked off her armor. A beam weapon scored her shoulder plate. She dove through a maintenance hatch as the charges detonated. The explosion ripped through the power conduits, sending cascading failures throughout the control center. Emergency lighting failed, life support shut down, automated systems went offline. The FSA troops found themselves in darkness, gasping for air, their carefully prepared defenses worthless. Claire's team assaulted through the chaos using thermal imaging to identify targets. The FSA troops tried to resist, but they were disoriented, desperate, defeated. Within minutes, the control center was secure. "Objectives complete," Claire reported to the fleet. "Station defenses are offline. You're clear for assault." Through the station's viewports, she watched as the Federation battle groups emerged from faster-than-light travel. 300 warships, gleaming in the light of the distant star. The FSA defenders, seeing that fleet approaching and knowing their defenses were down, began surrendering en masse. Kepler Station was retaken with minimal casualties, but Claire's team had paid a heavy price. Node 4-7 was dead. Vex had succumbed to her injuries during the final assault. 4 others were critically wounded. Of the original 17, only 11 remained operational. 70% casualties, just as predicted. The medical teams worked frantically as the team was evacuated to the flagship. Claire sat in the transport, staring at her hands, watching them shake as adrenaline faded. She'd led people into combat, made decisions that sent them to their deaths, accomplished the mission at terrible cost. Was this what command meant? Was this the price of being Earthborn? Admiral Korath met them personally on the flagship. Your actions saved approximately 4,000 lives today. The battle groups would have faced catastrophic losses without your success. We lost 6 people, Claire said numbly. I know, and their sacrifice will be remembered. But you need to understand something, Junior Officer Martinez. This is war. People die. Good people. People you care about. People who trusted you to lead them. His voice softened slightly. The question isn't whether you'll lose people. The question is whether their deaths meant something, whether the mission justified the cost. And today, it did. Claire wanted to argue, wanted to scream that no mission was worth the lives of her teammates. But she knew he was right. This was the reality of warfare, the burden of command. She'd led them into hell and brought most of them back. That was the best anyone could do. The war continued. Tactical Response Team Alpha was rebuilt with new members, deployed on mission after mission. Some they won, some they lost. Claire's reputation grew with each operation. The human officer who led from the front, who found impossible solutions to impossible problems, who refused to accept defeat even when facing overwhelming odds. Other human officers began to emerge, following her example. Lisa Grant distinguished herself in ship-to-ship combat. Jake Patterson became a specialist in ground warfare. A second-year cadet named Marcus Lee developed revolutionary tactics for zero-gravity fighting. Humanity was proving itself worthy of its place in the galactic fleet. But the cost was staggering. The Federation lost systems, stations, entire colonies. The FSA proved more organized and better equipped than intelligence had predicted. They had allies, resources, and a strategic vision that suggested someone very intelligent was directing their operations. The war that was supposed to last months had stretched into years with no end in sight. Claire received her promotion to full lieutenant during the second year of the war. She was 21 years old and commanded a company of 200 soldiers. She had participated in 63 combat operations, won 17 commendations, and buried 43 people under her command. The scanner's red warning had been prophetic. She was dangerous, effective, and had lost count of how many enemy combatants she'd killed. She stood in her quarters aboard the carrier Valiant, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She looked older than her years, with scars on her face and darkness in her eyes. The girl from Denver who had arrived at the academy 4 years ago would barely recognize this hardened warrior, but she understood now what it meant to be Earthborn. It wasn't about being fearless or invincible. It was about doing what had to be done, even when it was terrible, even when it destroyed something inside you, because the alternative was worse. It was about carrying the weight of impossible decisions and continuing to function. It was about being the weapon that others needed while remembering you were still human underneath the armor. Her terminal chimed. New orders. She read them twice, unable to believe what she was seeing. She'd been selected to lead Operation Redemption, a desperate gambit to strike at the FSA's command structure. Intelligence had finally identified the mastermind behind the enemy's strategic planning, Admiral Vorath, a rogue Kronar who'd defected from the Federation with classified information and a personal fleet. He was operating from a hidden base somewhere in the Void Reaches, coordinating all FSA military operations. The mission was simple in concept. Find Vorath's base, infiltrate it, and eliminate the Admiral. But the Void Reaches were uncharted territory, filled with spatial anomalies, hostile forces, and dangers that made normal space combat look tame. Going there was suicide. Coming back was impossible. Claire read the mission parameters and smiled grimly. A suicide mission deep into hostile territory against impossible odds. No support, no reinforcements, no margin for error. Exactly the kind of mission that required someone marked by red light, someone who refused to accept that some things couldn't be done. She activated her comm. Team Alpha, assemble in Briefing Room 7. We've got work to do. The team that gathered was different from the one that had started at the Academy. Only 5 original members remained: Claire, Jake, Kelvin, Borak, and Lysa. The others were replacements, skilled veterans who'd proven themselves in combat. Some were humans, others weren't, but they'd all earned their place in the unit that bore humanity's name. We're going after Admiral Vorath, Claire announced without preamble. Intelligence believes his base is hidden in the Void Reaches. We'll take a stealth ship, navigate through the anomalies, locate the base, infiltrate it, and eliminate the target. Expected survival rate is approximately 20%. Silence filled the room as that number sank in. 1 in 5. That meant 4 out of 5 wouldn't come back. I won't order anyone to come. Claire continued. This is volunteer only. If you want out, no one will judge you. But if you're in, you need to commit completely. This mission will require everything we have, and more. Jake stood first. I'm in. Been following you into hell for 4 years now. Not about to stop. The others followed, one by one. Not because they believed they'd survive, but because they believed in the mission, in each other, in the human who'd led them through impossible situations and somehow gotten most of them home. Then let's make this count, Claire said. Let's end this war. They launched 3 days later in a prototype stealth ship called the Whisper. It was small, cramped, and equipped with experimental technology that might allow them to pass through the void reaches undetected. Might. The engineers who'd built it gave them even odds of reaching the other side without being torn apart by spatial anomalies or detected by FSA patrols. The void reaches earned their name. Space itself seemed wrong there, twisted by phenomena that violated conventional physics. Their navigation systems failed within hours, leaving them relying on visual navigation and dead reckoning. The sensors showed phantom contacts that disappeared when investigated. Time itself felt unstable, moving too fast or too slow depending on proximity to certain anomalies. Claire piloted the ship personally, trusting instinct when instruments failed. She'd grown up watching old Earth films about submarine warfare, about captains navigating by feel through hostile waters. This was the same principle, just applied to space. Every decision could mean life or death. Every course correction was a gamble. They encountered FSA patrols twice. Both times the Whisper's stealth systems held, keeping them invisible long enough to slip past. But Claire knew their luck wouldn't hold forever. The third encounter came on their 18th day in the Reaches. A full FSA battle group, 20 ships including a dreadnought, conducting maneuvers in what Claire had thought was empty space. The Whisper's stealth systems were designed for short-term concealment, not extended exposure to active sensors at close range. They had maybe 30 minutes before they were detected. We can't turn back, Jake observed. We're too deep into the Reaches, and we can't go around. The anomalies are too dense in any other direction. Then we go through, Claire decided, right through the middle of their formation, fast and quiet. It was the most terrifying 30 minutes of their lives. The Whisper drifted through the enemy fleet like a ghost, passing within kilometers of warships that could vaporize them with a single shot. Claire kept her hands steady on the controls, her breathing controlled, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. The crew sat in absolute silence, watching the tactical display as enemy ships passed by. They were almost clear when a FSA destroyer changed course, moving directly into their path. Collision was inevitable. If they maneuvered to avoid it, they'd be detected. If they didn't maneuver, they'd crash. Claire cut all power except minimal life support. The Whisper went completely dark, drifting on momentum alone. The destroyer passed within 50 meters, close enough that they could see its hull plates through the viewports. Then it was gone, continuing on its patrol route, oblivious to how close it had come to discovering them. Reactivating systems, Claire whispered after 5 eternal minutes. Let's get the hell out of here before our luck runs out. They found Virat's base on the 23rd day. It was hidden inside a hollowed-out moon, completely shielded from external sensors. Only the massive ships coming and going betrayed its presence. Claire watched from a concealed position, cataloging defenses, patrol patterns, and vulnerabilities. This is going to be ugly, Kelvin observed. That base has 10,000 personnel, automated defenses, and enough firepower to destroy a fleet. We're 12 people with light weapons and questionable sanity. 13 people, Claire corrected. Counting the AI pilot we're leaving with the ship. My mistake. 13 against 10,000. Much better odds. Despite his sarcasm, Kelvin was right. This made Kepler Station look easy. They couldn't fight their way, and they couldn't sneak past that many defenders. They needed something else, something unexpected, something that would create chaos and opportunity. Claire studied the base's design and found her answer in the moon's internal structure. The base was built into natural caverns, connected by tunnels that followed the moon's original geological formations. Those formations included massive pockets of compressed gas left over from the moon's formation. If someone were to destabilize those pockets, the resulting explosions would trigger a chain reaction that would tear the base apart from inside. We're not infiltrating, Claire announced. We're triggering a catastrophic structural failure. Jake looked at her like she'd lost her mind. You want to blow up the entire moon? Not the entire moon, just enough to force a complete evacuation. When everyone's scrambling for escape pods and emergency transports, we slip in, find Vorath, and eliminate him before the base collapses completely. That's the most insane plan I've ever heard, Lysa said. Then she smiled. I love it. They spent 2 days planting charges in precisely calculated locations across the moon's surface. It required extravehicular activity in hostile territory, working in vacuum while FSA patrols passed overhead. They lost one team member to a random sensor sweep, another was crushed by shifting rock during placement, but they got the charges in place. When they triggered the explosions, the moon screamed. Gas pockets ruptured in cascading chain reactions, sending shockwaves through the base's structure. Emergency alarms blared. Personnel flooded toward evacuation points. The carefully organized military installation descended into chaos. Team Alpha entered through a ventilation shaft during the panic. They moved through corridors filled with fleeing soldiers, using the confusion as cover. Claire's heart hammered as they navigated by schematic memory through the collapsing base. They had maybe 15 minutes before structural integrity failed completely. They found Vorath in his command center, desperately trying to coordinate evacuation while the base fell apart around him. He was massive, even for a Kronar, augmented with military-grade enhancements that made him nearly unstoppable in combat. His personal guards numbered 20, all elite troops who'd followed him from the Federation. End of the line, Admiral, Claire announced, her weapon trained on the traitor. Vorath turned, his reptilian face splitting in what might have been amusement. A human. Of course it's a human. You creatures have no sense of self-preservation. He gestured at his guards. Kill them. The firefight was brutal and desperate. Claire's team had surprise and determination, but Vorath's guards had numbers and superior positioning. Borak fell, taking 3 guards with him. Kelvin was wounded but kept fighting. Lysa's shots accounted for 5 enemies before return fire caught her. Jake and Claire fought side by side, their movements synchronized through years of combat together. They cleared the guards and advanced on Vorath, who met them with a roar of defiance. He was fast despite his size, his augmented reflexes allowing him to dodge their shots and close the distance. Claire felt ribs crack as Vorath's fist connected with her chest. Jake's arm broke when the Admiral backhanded him into a bulkhead. But they'd learned long ago that humans didn't win through superior strength or speed. They won through relentless determination and the willingness to take punishment in order to deliver the killing blow. Claire emptied her weapon into Vorath's chest at point-blank range while he was crushing her throat. The armor-piercing rounds finally penetrated his enhancements, finding the soft organic tissue beneath. The Admiral staggered, his grip loosening. Jake drove his combat knife into the gap in Vorath's neck armor, severing critical arteries. The traitor fell, his eyes wide with disbelief that humans had been the ones to end him. Impossible, he gurgled. You're just primitives. You shouldn't be capable of this. That's what everyone thinks, Claire gasped, rubbing her bruised throat, right up until we prove them wrong. The base was collapsing in earnest now. Claire and Jake stumbled through failing corridors, heading for the extraction point where the Whisper waited. The rest of the team was gone. All of them. They'd completed the mission, eliminated the target that had been directing the enemy war effort, but the cost had been everything. They reached the ship with seconds to spare, the AI pilot already powering up engines. As the Whisper pulled away from the dying moon, Claire watched it crack apart, scattering debris and escaping ships across the void reaches. Vorath's base, the nerve center of the FSA's military operations, ceased to exist. We did it, Jake said quietly. Against all odds, we actually did it. Claire didn't answer. She was thinking of Borak, Kelvin, Lysa, and the others, thinking of all the people she'd led into combat over 4 years of war, thinking of the scanner that had marked her as dangerous, as someone who refused to accept defeat even when extinction was certain. She'd fulfilled that prophecy. She'd accomplished the impossible mission, and it had cost her everyone she cared about except Jake. Was this what being Earthborn really meant? Surviving when everyone else died? Being the weapon that won wars but lost everything else? The journey back through the void reaches was silent. Claire piloted, Jake monitored systems, and neither spoke about what they'd lost. The Whisper emerged into Federation space 3 weeks later to discover that Vorath's death had broken the FSA's strategic coordination. Without his tactical genius, their forces had fallen into disarray. The Federation was winning, pushing back on every front. The war would end within months. Humanity's contribution would be recognized as decisive. Claire Martinez would be hailed as a hero, receive the Federation's highest honors, and be offered a command position that would have been unthinkable for a human just 5 years earlier. But as she stood on the bridge of the Whisper, looking at the stars, she felt empty. Victory had been achieved, the mission had been accomplished, but the price, the terrible price in lives and souls, made her question everything. Her terminal chimed, a message from Admiral Korath. Welcome home, Lieutenant. You've done the impossible. Again. Now comes the hardest part. Living with what you've done and learning to be human again. We'll help however we can. But first, there's someone who wants to meet you. The someone was General Thane. He waited in the docking bay as the Whisper settled into its berth, his mechanical eye gleaming in the harsh lights. When Claire emerged, battered and exhausted, he saluted her. The war is effectively over, thanks to you. The FSA is suing for peace. Federation territory will be restored. Humanity will be recognized as a full member species with all rights and privileges. He paused. But you already know this isn't about politics or recognition. You want to know if it was worth it. If all those deaths, all that sacrifice, accomplished something meaningful. Claire nodded, unable to speak. Come with me. There's something you need to see. He led her through the station to an observation deck overlooking a massive docking facility. Hundreds of ships were visible, and thousands of beings moved through the organized chaos of military logistics. Humans worked alongside Kronar, Valkyrians, Draxons, Serenians, and dozens of other species. The unity that had seemed impossible when Claire first arrived at the Academy was now reality. You did this, Thane said quietly. Not alone, but you were the catalyst. You proved that humans could lead, could innovate, could win against impossible odds. You changed how every species in the Federation views humanity. You've opened doors that would have remained closed for generations. At what cost? Claire whispered. At a cost that can never be repaid, but also at a cost that saved millions of lives. The war would have dragged on for decades without your actions. How many more would have died? How many colonies would have fallen? How many families would have been destroyed? He turned to face her. You made the hardest choice any officer can make. You spent lives, including pieces of your own soul, to accomplish a mission that ended a war. That's what command means. That's what being Earthborn means. Claire looked out at the diverse crews working together. She thought of Team 7, of Jake still recovering from his injuries, of all the faces she'd never see again. They'd believed in her, trusted her, followed her into hell itself, and she'd led them as best she could, made impossible decisions, and somehow kept enough of them alive to accomplish the mission. The scanner had been right. She was dangerous. But not because she was reckless or violent. She was dangerous because she refused to accept that some things couldn't be done, refused to believe that some prices were too high, refused to give up even when every rational calculation said the mission was impossible. That was the Earthborn difference. That was why humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not because humans were stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because when faced with extinction, when staring into the abyss, when every instinct screamed to run, humans looked at the impossible and said, "Watch me." Claire Martinez was 21 years old. She'd completed 64 combat operations, earned 17 commendations, and buried 43 people under her command. She'd ended a war, saved thousands of lives, and paid a price that would haunt her forever. She was Earthborn. And that meant she would carry this weight, learn to live with it, and be ready when the galaxy needed someone willing to do the impossible again. Because there would be a next time. There always was. But for now, standing in that observation deck, watching species that had feared and mocked humans now working alongside them as equals, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They'd done it. Against all odds, against all predictions, against every calculation that said they should have failed, humanity had proven itself worthy. The scanner's red warning had been prophetic. Do not engage. Because humans, when pushed to their limits, when fighting for something they believed in, when refusing to accept defeat, were the most dangerous force in the galaxy. And Claire Martinez, the girl from Denver who'd been mocked at the Academy gate, had become the living embodiment of that truth. She was Earthborn. She was dangerous, and the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.